discovered something terrifying about the rarest personality type on Earth. Fewer than 1% carry this particular psychic signature, and what the world writes off as quietness or shyness is, in truth, a force few understand. Society smiles at them as harmless, but called them the most dangerous psychological presence, not for physical violence, but because their clarity is a scalpel that cuts through the comfortable illusions everyone needs to survive. Today, I'll reveal exactly why these people can unmake you if provoked, and the specific truth they carry that shatters the lies you live by. Once you know what's so, you'll never glance at quiet faces the same way again. Name them the introverted intuitives. In modern shorthand, they map to the individuation, but his description digs deeper and darker than any checklist. These souls do not merely feel differently, they operate like human reconnaissance. Their minds collect human behavior the way a surveillance grid collects images, tone, micro-expression, posture, the flicker of eyes, all catalogued before consciousness can even label them. What makes this lethal is that they cannot switch it off. While you make small talk, their attention records every tiny misalignment between your words and your body, every soft contradiction you do not mean to broadcast. They perceive the private lies you tell yourself, the tension you habitually ignore, the shadow crouched behind each practiced smile. Encountered this again and again in his Zurich clinic. Patients carried the same heavy sight, a mother's forced cheer, a father's quiet rage, a partner's secret contempt, and the intake of all that unseen data drowned them. Yet the real terror lies elsewhere, why the world turns on them. Trace the mechanism: shadow projection. When this rare type looks at you, they do not only view your persona, they perceive your shadow, the selfishness you rationalize, the cruelty you hide, the weakness you deny. People feel it before they can think it. The body recognizes exposure. Something in us flinches when another's gaze maps our hidden truth. That flinch produces an uncanny valley in relationship, a pall of discomfort around a silent presence. You meet someone still and observing. They speak little, yet their presence makes you feel unbearably exposed, as if they see into places you have carefully shuttered. What the mind does when confronted by its naked reflection is often violent. It attacks the mirror. Destroy the one reflecting the shadow, and you can preserve your illusions. So introverted intuitives are not merely misunderstood, they become targets, scapegoats, bullies' prey, labeled too sensitive, too intense, too negative. Recorded the pattern in clinical notes. A patient telling truths about a family would be punished for speaking them. The household would turn on the truth teller to protect the fragile house of delusions. This is the dark economy of seeing. Clarity becomes threat, and the rare soul who cannot unsee pays with exile, contempt, and sometimes persecution, because in a world built on comfortable lies, the clearest vision is the most dangerous thing of all. The family unites against the patient, and, by unanimous decree, names them the problem. The patient begins to doubt their own sanity, while the household sustains its communal delusion. This is not random cruelty, but collective psychological self-defense. Observe that people will forgive many faults, but they will never forgive the one who sees them with naked clarity. This rare type breaks the unspoken covenant of social survival by refusing to pretend ignorance of what everyone else agrees to ignore. Yet the truer danger is not the world's cruelty toward them, but what they become to survive it. To endure a culture that punishes clear sight, these introverted intuitives fashion and armor the persona. It is the acceptable face displayed to the world, while the true self watches unseen. For them, the persona becomes a mask so cunning it rivals professional espionage. They learn to mirror, to match energy, to reflect expectation, until they vanish into the needs of others. You seek a listener without judgment, they become that. You crave validation, they provide it. They fit anywhere because they understand everyone, and so they become confidants, repositories for secrets never meant to be confessed. People spill truths they had never planned to share. They feel understood in an uncanny intimacy, but herein lies the wound described. While carrying the psychological burdens of others, they dissolve. They absorb so much that their own voice grows faint, empathy is mistaken for identity, and understanding others supplants understanding themselves. Recorded this slow erosion, they gave until there was nothing left, holding space for every sorrow until they drowned in it. Empaths are not broken, they are alchemists in progress. The alchemist's path offers drills, youth-rooted boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos to convert overwhelm into clarity by Surreal Mind. A 236-page downloadable ebook is in stock. Begin now at thesurrealmind.com. They maintain the persona so perfectly that they forget the self beneath the mask, then something breaks. Named that moment the door slam, it is their psychological limit realized. And terrifyingly, they do not explode as others expect, they do not rage or dramatize, they erase. One day you matter, the next you are excised from their world as if you had never been. No explanation, no closure, no second chance. They remove the toxic like surgeons removing tumors clean, precise, irreversible. It is not impulsive. The introverted intuitive has been compiling a dossier for months or years, every broken promise catalogued, every manipulation noted, each pattern of deceit collated, while others shrug and call it coincidence. When they finally door slam, it is not an outburst, but a measured response built on overwhelming evidence. What unnerves others is how it arrives without warning. You think all is well. For months or years they've been patient, absorbing your worst, making excuses, granting chance after chance. Then suddenly you are gone, blocked, conversations ended, the relationship terminated. The most disquieting thing is their indifference, no guilt, no regret, no second thoughts. The one who loved you once now feels complete emotional neutrality when your name arises. Saw that this was not cruelty, but psychological self-preservation. The introverted intuitive reaches a point of absolute trust in their perception, stops doubting their sensitivity, stops wondering if they overreact, stops giving benefit of the doubt. When they door slam you, it means they have seen an unredeemable pattern, a core trait incompatible with their well-being, and once perceived it cannot be unperceived. Yet a darker truth hides in their gift. Because they discern weaknesses with such razor clarity, they possess a terrifying capacity for psychological destruction. They know the exact phrase that would break you. They map your insecurities and triggers with surgical precision. Someone who reads micro-expressions, processes tone and posture instantly, and perceives your deepest shame knows precisely where you are vulnerable. This is why I called them dangerous, not because they seek harm, but because they could, if they chose. And here Jung's discovery parts from common fear. This rare type most often refrains from cruelty, combining devastating insight with a delicate ethic. They see your fault lines and protect them, choosing kindness until you force their hand. But push them past trust, and their restraint dissolves into a calm, clinical unmaking. They will dismantle you with truths you cannot deny, hold up a mirror you cannot refuse, speak facts that cut through every defense, and in that instant you will know they have always seen you so clearly. Jung documented lives shattered after provoking one of these beings, marriages ended, careers collapsed, friendships ruptured, not from malice, but from the brutal honesty that destroyed fragile illusions. The question wrestled with was whether this capacity for psychic destruction made them a threat or made them the immune system of humanity. Were they a menace to social cohesion or the organism that names and expels toxicity? Concluded they were both dangerous and necessary, destructive and healing, depending on whether the gift was integrated or whether it devoured the bearer. He spent decades shaping what he called the individuation process. For this rare type, individuation meant keeping a distinct identity while seeing clearly, learning to tell what belongs to you and what you have absorbed, and to turn perception into service rather than suffering. The first lesson was conscious discrimination. Learn to notice when you are carrying another's anxiety, rage, or despair. Too many introverted intuitives wander burdened by feelings that are not theirs and mistake absorption for pathology. Taught a simple practice, daily solitude, not as escape but as a clearing, where picked up material can settle and your authentic voice be heard again. The second lesson was shadow integration. Those who see shadows so plainly often have not faced their own. The more you disown your capacity for selfishness or cruelty, the more you are shocked by those qualities in others. Urged his patients to own every human capacity, lying, betrayal, hardness, not to repent forever, but to become whole. Accepting your shadow turns perception from sponge to scalpel. You can observe another's flaw without being consumed because you have reconciled with your own. The third lesson was conscious participation. Learn to engage with others' psychic material without losing yourself. Develop psychological containers that hold pain temporarily. Understand it, then release it. Choose when to give your gift and when to rest. Decide who deserves access to your sight. This is the crucible that separates empathic ruin from empathic mastery. Documented that those who completed individuation became, in a manner of speaking, nearly invincible. Psychologically, they could no longer be manipulated because they saw manipulation forming before it fully manifested. They could no longer be gaslighted because they trusted their perceptions absolutely. They could no longer be drained because they maintained clear boundaries around their energy. Most importantly, they stopped apologizing for what they saw, stopped questioning whether they were too sensitive, stopped dimming their perception to make others comfortable. They became what called conscious warriors, those who see everything, integrate everything, and wield that vision in service of truth. Studied history to see what split those who integrated their sight from those who were consumed by it. He found unintegrated superiority everywhere. Insight turned inward as a weapon, isolation and collapse following when vision was used to punish rather than to heal. In contrast, he pointed to Meister Eckhart as an example of successful integration, a mystic who perceived depths others could not, and yet channeled that perception into compassionate speech that invited understanding rather than resistance. His success rested in what named conscious humility, the knowing that superior perception is a gift to be shared wisely, not a blade to be brandished carelessly. Most crucially, confessed his own ordeal from 1913 to 1919. His confrontation with the unconscious, recorded in the Red Book, almost destroyed him until he learned to integrate those overwhelming perceptions. His breakthrough was realizing these perceptions were not pathology but evolution, consciousness straining to advance beyond collective limits. With that shift, he taught patients they were not broken but ahead of their time. Their suffering stemmed not from seeing too much, but from being taught that seeing clearly was wrong. When his patients trusted their sight, everything altered. They ceased tolerating toxic ties, left draining workplaces, refused to pretend at lower awareness. They became what called culture carriers, people who aid consciousness by refusing to participate in the collective darkness. Yet warned of two pitfalls. The first was inflation, identifying with the superior function and believing oneself chosen, a delusion that severs genuine connection and breeds isolation. True integration, he noted, never preaches but embodies. The second pitfall was withdrawal justification, not using superior perception to justify complete disconnection from society, convincing yourself others are too unconscious to be worth engaging. Recognize this as spiritual superiority masquerading as wisdom. True individuation requires engagement with the unconscious world, not escape from it. The third pitfall was the helper's high, becoming addicted to being needed, defining yourself entirely through your ability to see and help others while losing contact with your own inner development. When perception becomes identity, the person disappears behind the function. This is not individuation but self-abandonment. Emphasize that integration is not a permanent achievement, but a dynamic process demanding constant conscious attention. Even the well-integrated can regress under stress, trauma, or major life transition, lapse in their boundaries, and be flooded again with others' unconscious content. This is why prescribed ongoing practices, regular solitude, to distinguish your psychological content from absorbed material, conscious choice about when and with whom to engage your perceptive abilities, continuous shadow work to prevent projection, connection with others who can reality check and support you, and creative expression as an outlet for overwhelming input. He believed integrated individuals perform a crucial evolutionary function. They sense collective problems before they become manifest, feel environmental and social unsustainability early, perceive spiritual possibilities beyond current frameworks, grasp technological implications others miss, and carry collective shadow contents that demand conscious integration. The sensitive person's symptoms often mirror what the entire culture must address. Their transformation thus serves evolution, not by martyring themselves to consciousness, but by developing it so fully that it becomes a gift to the whole. At the highest level, observed individuals who hold their abilities lightly, see clearly without attachment to others, accept what they see, and perceive deeply without compulsively fixing everything, the transcendent function serving the evolution of consciousness naturally, without preaching, simply by embodying more conscious ways of being. Left us this sharp insight about the rarest type. They are not broken because they see what others miss. They are psychologically ahead of their time. The question is not whether they should suppress their perception to fit the collective unconscious, but whether they will develop the individuation skills needed to integrate that perception consciously. His method offers a path from dangerous isolation to conscious service, from overwhelming sight to integrated wisdom, from psychological curse to evolutionary contribution. This rare type was born to see everything, not to suffer in silence but to serve consciousness's advance. The world needs their insights delivered with integration, wisdom, and strategic awareness that turn dangerous perception into cultural medicine. Your gift is not your burden, your unconscious relationship to your gift is. Learn to integrate it consciously, and you become precisely what believed, highly perceptive individuals were meant to be: consciousness pioneers, preparing humanity for development that is inevitable but not yet obvious. S. most dangerous discovery was not that some people see everything, it was that most who see everything never learn to use what they see wisely. The danger is never in the perception itself, but in failing to cultivate a conscious relationship with one's extraordinary faculties. You are not too much for this world. You are precisely what the evolution of consciousness demands once you learn to wield your perceptiveness with the same intentionality with which Carl Jung wielded his. And if you recognize yourself in this description of the differentiated perceiver, then you belong to the psychological category Jung regarded as essential for the future unfolding of human awareness. Share which form of perceiver you are, for your individuation journey resonates with others traveling this same interior path. Subscribe to Echoes of Excellence for further insights into Jung's discoveries about psychological development that moves beyond the limitations of the collective unconscious. The danger of seeing everything has never been that you see too much, it is that you may never learn to see with the integration, discipline, and wisdom your gift demands. In The Alchemist's Path, perception training for empaths, you refine overwhelm into understanding through Jung-inspired boundaries, practical exercises, and step-by-step perceptual cultivation. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next dimension.